Part 3. The Problem. God's plan A is to minister through ordinary, uniquely designed, up-close, mainstream, divinely connected, along-the-way ministers. But there's a problem that challenges that plan. Are you part of the problem? Chapter 15. The Parade. When I was 9 years old, my family and I attended a parade on Main Street in my small hometown. In order to grab a choice spot along the parade route, my sister and I jumped on our bicycles and rode ahead of the rest of the family. Like any small town parade, the procession was very simple. It consisted of makeshift floats, men and women in thrown-together clown outfits, Boy and Girl Scout troops, civic clubs, politicians in freshly waxed cars, the high school marching band, local fire engines, and police cars. To be honest, the whole thing wasn't that exciting until a group of my peers passed by on their decorated bicycles. Now that caught my attention. These kids weren't just sitting on the curbside watching the parade with the rest of us, and they weren't doing anything special, just riding their bicycles. But they were in the parade, and I was thrilled to see that someone like me could join in. "Mom, those are my friends in the parade," I shouted. "Do you want to join them?" she immediately replied. "I couldn't do that," I insisted, assuming the kids in the parade belonged to some special group. My mother knew otherwise. It was a low-budget, open-to-anyone kind of parade. My heart pounded at the thought of actually being in the parade. But I continued my half-hearted protest. "Mom, my bicycle isn't decorated like their bikes. Mine is just plain." "Doesn't have to be decorated," she persisted as she picked my bike off the ground. "Go ahead. It's your chance. Get out there with the rest of your friends. I'll find you at the end of the parade route." Immediately, my mom began appealing for her to see this as an equal opportunity, urging her, "Hurry, you both can enter the parade route together." I joined my mother's pleading, but the speed at which decision was needed and my sister's timidity took control. She froze, shying away from her chance to participate, while I looked once again at all the excitement and opportunity about to pass me by. "Really? I can really do that?" I asked, looking for one final bit of reassurance. I glanced at my father, just to be sure. He didn't need to say anything for me to tell he was concerned. I could see reservation plainly on his face, but my mom, who's very much a risk-taking parade kind of lady, won out. Helping to usher me and my bike through the crowd and into the street, she reassured me, "It's okay, hurry, you're going to miss out if you don't get in there." Quickly, I caught up with the rest of my friends and joined the parade. For the next 30 minutes or so, I savored the too good to be true reality that I was in the parade. I kept glancing in disbelief at all the spectators to my left and right. I had the time of my life. However, despite my mom's energetic coaxing, my sister had refused to join me. She was too timid and afraid. My family met me at the end of the parade route, and my parents placed my bike in the trunk of the car. As we drove home, I proudly recounted every moment of the experience. Sitting on the sidelines. My childhood parade experience resembles the way most Christians approach life and ministry. Most people sit on the sidelines watching the parade go by. They're content to watch others get involved while they sit in their comfortable seats at a safe distance away from the action. One of the greatest challenges to God's plan A for reaching the world is spectators. Pastors often refer to the 80-20 principle that applies to most churches. Put simply, this principle states that 20% of the people in most churches do 80% of the work. Maybe you've seen this principle at work in your own church. Apparently, the harvest ministry opportunity is still plentiful, and the laborers, ministry participants, are still too few. God's plan A for reaching the world is to mobilize every Christian as an active laborer into every place of human need. But how can he fulfill his plan if fewer than 20% of his people participate? To put it another way, how can he fulfill his plan when more than 80% of his followers are spectators? God desires to extend his grace, love, and power to so many more people in the world than currently receive it. But when he looks for willing laborers through whom he can express his will, he finds few. There just aren't enough active laborers. The problem comes from a shortage of willingness from Christians to put their faith into action. Instead, they prefer to live as spectators, watching from the sidelines. An unresponsive body. I wonder how God must feel when he sees so many human needs, but so few mobilized laborers he can use to meet them. I wonder if it saddens him, frustrates him, angers him. One day as I arrived at a park for a recreational day away with our family, I caught a glimpse of how he must feel. A short distance away from where we were picnicking, I noticed a young military veteran in a wheelchair, enjoying a day of fun with his wife and 2 children. As I occasionally observed this other father and his family, I repeatedly and painfully began witnessing the longing of this loving dad to be more physically interactive than he was able with his children. They had now begun playing far beyond the reach of his wheelchair path, and his heart clearly wanted to be up close. But neither his body nor wheelchair would get him there. Suddenly, I heard a child scream and saw heartbreaking emotion erupt on this father's face. One of his children had accidentally fallen and began crying out in pain. The young father couldn't reach her to offer the comfort he so wanted to give. As I watched, he lunged forward, almost completely falling out of his wheelchair, and then his face grimaced, and in anguish, he began to cry. He longed to reach out to his child, to hold her up close, but his paralyzed arms and legs made it impossible. I was overcome with waves of sadness as I took in the anguishing scene of a longing dad's heart, a heart trapped inside a body incapable of expressing what the mind and will of this dear Father wanted. Tears filled my eyes. I couldn't stop thinking about it. How must it feel for your head to tell your body to do something, but it won't? It must be more frustrating than I can imagine. Later, I sensed Jesus telling me, "Dwight, I'll tell you how it feels." And it hit me like a ton of bricks. Jesus has a body. And he knows all too well how it feels. Scripture tells us Jesus is the head and we are his body. The head continually communicates with the body. The head tells the body to go over there, say this, or do that. But what happens when the body refuses to cooperate? Far too often, the body of Christ has failed to respond according to the will of its head. It's stuck in spectator mode. How many times does Jesus yearn to speak words of love or encouragement to someone who is hurting or searching for answers, but his mouth won't respond? He longs to be close to people across a room, across the street, or even across the world. But his feet won't obey. They won't go where he tells them. Jesus once held children in his arms and blessed them. Today, he wants to continue holding and blessing children, but his arms fail to cooperate. The music group Casting Crowns expressed it this way in their song, "If We Are the Body." But if we are the body, why aren't his arms reaching? Why aren't his hands healing? Why aren't his words teaching? And if we are the body, why aren't his feet going? Why is his love not showing them there is a way? There is a way. Why aren't we reaching, healing, teaching, and going? Because the body isn't obeying the head. Far too often, Jesus must feel like he lives in a quadriplegic body. Grievous consequences. Think about this for a moment. What are the consequences when so few people in the body actively obey Jesus? How does it affect the world? Well, for starters, the active 20% in the body are prone to burnout, even though fulfilling their ministry calling should be an incredible source of joy and purpose. And why? Because they see so much need around them and try to do too much by themselves. So they overcompensate for the inactive and unengaged remainder of Christ's body. Now, on the flip side, the inactive, spectating 80% miss out on the joy and sense of purpose that comes from being involved in daily, active kingdom service. They miss out on the incredible joy and exhilaration that comes from living a life of purpose. I've always loved the motto of famous missionary Jim Elliot. He is no fool who gives up what he cannot keep to gain that which he cannot lose. Why spend your life aimlessly when you can invest it purposefully? But here's the most disturbing consequence. Jesus' plan A work doesn't get done. Broken and hurting people around the world, in workplaces and neighborhoods, everywhere, who need the up-close love of Christ, never receive it. Salve to their wound, Christ's love shown to them through an active laborer might be within arm's reach. Jesus sees the need and wants to do something about it, but needs his body to respond to him, their head. Around the world, right now, offices and factories are filled with unhappy, unfulfilled employees. Schools are filled with insecure students feeling they don't measure up to their peers. Unwanted children wait for forever families. Hungry, homeless people fill our streets. Single parents strive to raise children alone. Bars are filled with lonely, broken people trying to numb themselves against the pain around them. And our neighborhoods and apartment complexes are filled with people desperate for the kind of love manifested by those connected to the one who is love. And at the same time, our churches are filled with immobilized people who are uninvolved in the everyday lives of the very people they should and so easily could engage. People who need what they have. Jesus must be frustrated and grieved by the inaction of his quadriplegic body. A fully functioning body is critical to God's plan A for reaching the world. Join in. When I picked up my bike and joined the parade years ago, I had the time of my life. My sister, on the other hand, let her fear prevent her from getting into the action. So what about you? Are you involved or sitting on the sidelines? Are you in or out? 'Cause here's the deal. The parade passes by only once. So what are you waiting for? This is your only chance. You can't go back and reclaim a missed opportunity. There's no comparison between talking about the parade and being in it. Living vicariously through the lives of other parade participants doesn't come close either. Being a spectator is not God's calling on your life. His plan A for reaching the world requires your involvement. Come on, grab your bike, join the parade.